Tappei has just released Arc 7 Chapter 63, and this video will be a summary of the chapter. I highly recommend you check out my Arc 7 Chapter 62 summary. Anyways, let's begin. Time moves backwards for a moment. We see Gustav says that he will test him to see if they have what it takes to be a sword bearer. Gustav is speaking to Subaru and 3 other people. One man was a grey-scaled individual. Another was a bald man with tattoos. The final man was a young man with rust-coloured hair and a fearless face. Subaru understood that all of them were chosen to be in this event. One of the men raised their objection due to Subaru being there despite being a kid. After all, what use can a kid provide to a fight? Gustav shut down the men by stating that trying to interrupt him, they were actually interrupting the Emperor himself because he worked on behalf of the Emperor. Gustav explains that the audience will be the others on the island, and it's a test to see if they are worthy to entertain visitors in the future. Subaru realized why Cecilus wished him good luck. Cecilus did say he would be watching, so Subaru gets a small idea of what is happening. Subaru realizes that he will have to fight, but he's admonished by his team. His teammates ask for their 5th member, and Gustav says that she is sleeping in the healing room, and therefore they will be fighting without her. The rust-coloured hair man, who I will call Rusty, couldn't believe what Gustav was saying, and asked Subaru if he had any skills or magic. And Subaru of course couldn't use magic without Beatrice, and he couldn't think up of any schemes or strategies when he was small. Rusty asked if Subaru was really a child, and he muttered that in disappointment. Hearing this exchange, the bald man and the scaled man started arguing. The scaled man believes that all of them are dead, and Rusty tells him to calm down. He explains that he was a high-ranking warrior and to follow his lead, but he's shot down by the bald man. The bald man explains that the fact that he's on the island means that he was defeated and captured, which is a bad omen, and the bald man states he won't entrust his life on other people. Subaru calls out to Gustav, and again Gustav reiterates that every drop of blood spilled will be used for the sake of the Empire. The scene changes. We see Subaru and his group in the arena. Spectators are watching them. Subaru notes that the spectators are quiet. He expected them to be more noisy and vocal. Subaru looks at the beast in front of him. It's familiar, like the one that appeared in the mansion, but Subaru cannot remember the name of it. The guilty low roars and the scaled man panics. However, Rusty taps him and tells him to calm down, and he points at the other side of the arena to some swords, indicating that they can procure weapons and fight back. The bald man asks if Rusty can use a sword, and Rusty says he can use a sword way better than the bald man can. Subaru was told to distract the guilty low so Rusty can get the sword. With that, Gustav announced the start of the match. Immediately to Subaru's side, he heard a scream and Rusty fell to the floor. We see that the bald man attacked Rusty, reiterating that he won't trust another person with his life. The scaled man runs in a panic and goes to the wall of the arena, and his scales change colour and he becomes very hard to see. Rusty was attacked, the bald man ran to the sword, and the scaled man was hiding. They were really off to a bad start, but Subaru realized the guilty low didn't move. When the bald man picked up the sword, he was then attacked by the guilty low and killed. Subaru realized that picking up the weapons seemed to trigger the guilty low, meaning that they still had some time to plan. The guilty low, however, then charged at the wall of the arena, crushing the scaled man, killing him. We see Rusty is okay after being attacked and also has watched the 2 deaths. He tells Subaru to get behind him. The guilty low charges at them and Subaru can't think. If one of his friends was here, he could think of a strategy. With that, Subaru's body was grabbed and then thrown into the path of the lion, with Subaru's body being dismembered. As he sees Rusty try and escape the arena, saying that he lied about being a warrior. Gustav, however, just watches. Rusty is then killed by the guilty law. Subaru looks at the side and spots Cecilis. His demeanor is unchanged. Cecilis says he was wrong and wants to know if Subaru has anything to say to his partner when she wakes up. Subaru mutters something, but Cecilis tells Subaru to speak up, and Subaru shouts that he hates the Empire. Cecilis states he will remember it and pass it on to the girl. With that, Subaru's body is eaten by the guilty law, and he is crushed by its fangs. Subaru snaps back to reality and Rusty calms him down and mutters that there are swords in the arena. The old man asks if Rusty can use a sword, and Rusty says he can use it better than the old man. However, Subaru says that this is a lie. Subaru reaffirms that Rusty is a liar. The old man sides with Subaru and grabs Rusty by the collar, believing that Rusty was trying to plot against him. Gustav then starts the match, and we see Rusty bite off a few fingers of the bald man. With that, Rusty ran for the sword as the scaled man ran away, and the old man crouched down holding his hand. As Rusty picked up the sword, the guilty law moved. Immediately, the guilty law swung its claw and ripped off Rusty's arms, and then knocked him headfirst into a wall, killing him. The scaled man, seeing this, screamed out, but was crushed again by the guilty law. Subaru then realized that he shouldn't have said Rusty was a liar, as it achieved nothing. The bald man then asks if Subaru still wants to live, and Subaru says he does. The bald man tells him to pick up the sword, and tells Subaru to pass it to him. Subaru, of course, has already seen that the bald man does get obliterated in the last loop, but Subaru says that he doesn't want to give up. The bald man praises Subaru. The bald man calls himself Whites, and the bald man knows that Subaru is called Schwartz. Subaru runs to the sword and gets it and throws it to Whites. However, the guilty law's attack doesn't land on Subaru, because the guilty law stops and turns towards Whites. We see that as Whites catches the sword and swings it, the guilty law lifts up his hind foot and crushes Whites' skull. The guilty law then looks at Subaru, and Cecilis calls Subaru, asking if he can win. With the death of his comrade, surely Subaru should be able to awaken a hidden power or hidden skill. Subaru, however, responds that that doesn't happen and it won't happen, and Cecilis says that Subaru is right, and then asks if he has a message for the girl. However, Subaru asks a question. Why didn't the guilty law kill Subaru earlier? And Cecilis says that a beast is a beast that fights with instinct. Cecilis then asks if Subaru was the guilty law, who would he go for? Cecilis says he will tell the girl that Subaru was brave when she wakes up. With that, the guilty law crushes Subaru to death. Subaru came to. The scaled man and Rusty were arguing, and Subaru told Whites to hold him down. However, Subaru's loud voice was enough to startle all of them as he ran to the sword and picked it up. This was before Gustav even announced the start of the fight. Of course, Cecilis was right. The lion would go for the dangerous person. In other words, the person with a weapon was the dangerous one. The guilty law charged, and Subaru grew with determination. He will not cry. He will not run away. He will fight. He will fight and he will win. With his determination, Subaru's body was blown away and he was killed again. With that, the chapter ends. I'm not gonna lie, I actually really enjoyed this chapter. I honestly have no clue how they're going to win. Obviously, they need to team up, but I just find it funny how easy they're all getting obliterated. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I guess we'll wait and see.